action games in the last few years. And when video games are at their best, they can create very deep emotional resonances in players, both through narrative means and also through gameplay itself. However, while the play mechanics and stories of our games, I think, connect extremely well with the intellects of our players, they do not, by and large, connect with their hearts as well as we would like. And this is an enormous wasted opportunity, I think, that robs our form of a very important part of its potential power. In part, I think it's a philosophical problem. Mike Csikszentmihalyi himself says that the flow state that we enter when we're doing things like playing a video game at a high level of competence is almost emotionless, as an essential part of the flow state's character. Now, I have a few opinions about the obstacles and opportunities that this creates, and maybe we can talk about that later. But I hope that we've shown with the Uncharted games that it's possible to work around those constraints by using structure and pacing, and that by doing so we can bring real emotion into a great action video game. And ours is not the only approach. I want to stress this very strongly. A so-called wide linear game like ours is only one approach to video game storytelling. And lots of us at Naughty Dog are equally excited about the open world systemic approaches used by the amazing talents at Rockstar and at Rocksteady in the UK, who make the Batman games, and by designers like Clint Hocking. But anyway, I think we all understand the problem. And I think that I understand the source of at least part of that problem. Just like the actors who failed to win the part of Nathan Drake, we in the games industry are acting too tough and too snarky when we make our games. As game creators, I think we put up too much front in our creations, and we don't make ourselves nearly vulnerable enough. And I think our audience senses this, and they kind of emotionally withdraw from our games. Of course, cinema is a medium that's profoundly emotionally intimate. While stage actors reach heights of emotion through body language and tone of voice, film advances an audience's growing intimacy with its characters by using progressively tighter close-ups, so that we get to see the tiny nuances of emotion in an actor's face or in a character's face. And most human beings are naturally very empathetic. When we can clearly see other people having feelings, and we can clearly understand the emotional path that led them to a certain place, we often feel right along with them too. In other words, we respond well to vulnerability, and to the kind of vulnerability that some of our favourite actors bring to their roles. And this is really very simply how cinema works. This is what makes it such a powerful medium. And it's what makes it great for showing the point of view of characters that would otherwise be profoundly unsympathetic. A case in point right here in Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive. But don't get me wrong, I'm not calling for us to get soppy or overwrought. We human beings are also fascinated and impressed by nuance and restraint. And the rule of thumb that less is more is particularly important for cinematic acting performances. And we understand from our own experiences in life just how potent emotions can feel when someone is struggling to hide or disguise their feelings, or struggling to express them in a certain way. And if anyone's seen Ryan Gosling's spectacular performance in Drive, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. I think this was an important part of the revolution in North American cinema that Steven Spielberg and directors like him helped to facilitate in the 1970s and the 1980s. At a time when both men and women were still victim to the stereotyped gender roles of toughness and sensitivity that were left over from the first half of the 20th century, Spielberg was unafraid to show uncertainty in the face of Roy Scheider's character in Jaws, or the terror and wonder of Richard Dreyfuss in Close Encounters, or the quiet strength of Dee Wallace in E.T. the Extraterrestrial. And arguably the disruption of these previously stereotyped emotional gender roles by storytellers like Spielberg and all of those that came before and after him helped usher in the pop cultural revolution of the 1980s that fundamentally changed our society for the better by bringing progressive attitudes towards gender, race, and sexual orientation. So we have a host of opportunities to impact people's lives with our storytelling games in equally important ways. Now that, as a creative community, we're beginning to master the techniques, not just of cinema, but of TV and theatre and comic books and novels, and poetry and musical composition. And we can put all these things to work in the service of video games, which is the form which is most exciting to me out of all of these that I love. But if we're really to advance the form of storytelling games, then I think it's very important that we have something to say, and that requires insight on our part. What are our preoccupations and struggles? What are our worst fears and our secret longings? Even more importantly, we have to get in better touch with our emotions and become more adept at portraying them in detail, without sentimentality, without overstatement, but with restraint and clarity and nuance, and above all, vulnerability. And until we can rise to these challenges, we're not going to be able to realize the full capacity of our potential connection with our extraordinarily sophisticated audience of players. An audience whose literacy in games and stories and digital media and telecommunications technology have made them incredibly well-equipped explorers of symbolic landscapes, both inner and outer, both static and, even more importantly, systemic and dynamic. And these are landscapes of information and opinion, of sense and emotion that surround us all. And our ability to navigate them will determine our ability to find happiness and fulfillment, or will even just allow us to survive for one more day as we go about our 21st century lives. So I think that we owe it to our audience of players to really dig deep and to tell them some stories worth playing. And I hope that when you play Uncharted 3, you'll think that it's a story worth playing, and that our hard work will inspire you to make even more games to delight and uplift and inspire all of us at Naughty Dog. That's it. Thanks very much.